Hey everyone, welcome back to Rima Reads. So I just read The Burning God and I have some thoughts. So let's just go into it. I'm gonna do a brief spoiler-free section of this review and then I will go into all of my spoilery thoughts because like I mentioned, there are a lot. So, if you don't know what The Burning God is, it is the third book in the Poppy War trilogy by R.F. Kuang. The Poppy Wars trilogy is a Chinese-inspired grim, dark adult fantasy series. I did not know how dark it was when I first started reading it, and let me just tell you, it is super, super dark. Every single trigger warning you can possibly think of, put it on this book. It is very, very graphic. But the first book doesn't start out like that. It starts out with our main character, Rin. She is from the South, an adopted kind of, lives with abusive family. She's from the South, so she has darker skin. She works really, really hard to get into this elite private school that basically trains people for the military. And there she's like the only one with her dark skin, underdog, one of the few who's not like rich and privileged. She works really hard in this school, learns about shamanism, and then halfway through that book, war hits, and lots of things happen. And then the next two books, The Dragon Republic and The Burning God, follow more war. Lots of war. This is definitely a military fantasy, war-focused fantasy after that first half of the first book. And I really liked the first two books. Like I mentioned, it's a bit dark of a series for me, but I did really enjoy the first two books. I thought Rin is an awful human, which is a very interesting protagonist. I loved Kite. He is my favorite character of the series, and I thought the magic of this world was super intriguing. I liked the way R.F. Kuang wrote in this book, and I thought a lot of the themes that she was calling out were super interesting. So those were things that I also liked in The Burning God as well. But overall, I think I didn't vibe with this book as much as I vibed with the other two books. The other two books were solid, like 4.5 stars for me. This one, I'm kind of meandering around 3. Like I mentioned, there were things that I thought were done really, really well, and then there were just a few things that I didn't like very much in this series. I mean, I think you guys should read the Poppy War series. I definitely think it was a book series that was worth reading if you like grim dark fantasy, because like I mentioned, a very triggering book. I definitely think it's a book series worth reading, and I'm glad I read it. I do not think that the third book lived up to my expectations, though. So that's kind of the end of the non-spoilery review, but let's get into the spoilery section. So spoilers. The Burning God takes place right after the events of the Dragon Republic. Nezha has betrayed Rin. She has broken with Viceroy. I don't remember how to pronounce his name. She's starting a campaign to liberate the South from the Muganese rule, and is part of the Southern Coalition, I guess, kind of partnering with the Monkey Warlord to free the South, but they don't really give her any power. So the story starts off right when Rin is finally allowed to command her own troops. There's just a lot of war sequences in this book because we see so many battles, so many different battles, and then we also get like monologues of them marching for months on end. So much marching. This book, I don't even know what time frame it takes place over, but there was like 6 months of them marching through the mountains and 5 months of them marching through, I don't know, other places, walking around and then fighting a battle. And I was just like, it was too much for me. I did not care that much. I feel like a lot of those battles could have been slimmed down. Like, we didn't need that many of them. But also, I don't really care about military tactics. So maybe if you really like military tactics, this book would be great because they talk a lot about that. I just kind I got bored during those parts. I really did like I mentioned, Kite. I liked seeing the relationship with him and Rin and how he became her anchor, and that whole dynamic was super interesting. Really liked Rin's journey in this book as well. Like I mentioned, I don't think Rin is a good person, but I think she's a great protagonist or anti-heroine, like a great point of view character. I get very annoyed by her at some points. But this book, I generally really like to see her kind of like descent into madness. I've been kind of waiting for that for a while. Like after the first book, so at the end of the first book, after the genocide, was like her peak, doing bad shit. And then the second book was a lot of her floundering. I feel like in this book, she's still like struggling, like she's still debating how evil she wants to be until like the very, very end where she gets super paranoid. And I was kind of expecting her to go on full evil in this book, but I did I liked seeing her still struggle with the weight of her choices and finally breaking at the very end of this book. So I liked reading about Rin's struggle. I thought that was super cool. There are a whole host of side characters I really liked in this book. The conflict with Neza was interesting enough. I'm just not the biggest Neza fan. And so I was just like, kill him, you can do it. And then she never did, but it's fine. But I mean, I liked seeing Daji, I liked seeing Jiang again. And I liked, the group of shamans that Rin ends up training. Thought they're like the side characters in this book were great. But my main issue with this series is what was the point of this series? So this book ends. Rin has defeated all of everybody. She's, driven out the Muggani. She's, destroyed all of Neza's forces. She removed the Hesperians, or the white colonizers, from this land. She has effectively taken over, but she has no idea how to rule a country. They have no food because they've been, in war for years. So there's a whole famine sweeping the nation, and she's grown increasingly paranoid because she doesn't know who to trust. And the story ends with her realizing that she cannot feed her country and they're all going to die. So she makes a deal with Neza that the Hesperians will provide food to the country. Basically colonize the country. Slow colonization though, not quick colonization, which they were originally going to do, but slow colonization. And then she lets Neza kill her, or she kills herself, and therefore killing Kite, to make sure her people are fed. And I don't know, I just didn't like this ending. There's this really good scene in the book when Kite, after being captured by the Hesperians, asks Rin if he truly thinks that they are better than, the Nikara, than his people. And Rin sits down and tells him, no, by stating that you think that they are better, then you're basically justifying all of the horrible things that they've done, and which also justifies all of the horrible things that, the Nikara have done to the Spirly people, Rin's people, justifying that she's worse because of her dark skin, all of that stuff. So she makes this really good impassioned speech against colonialism. And this entire book, she's been fighting her hardest to drive out the Hesperians. She is fighting against colonialism. And that was the way she justified all her war crimes. She commits so much war crimes. She genocided at people in book 1. So this is how she, justifies all of her war crimes, is to fight off colonization, to fight off the destruction of her culture, to fight off this belief that the Hesperians are innately better than they are. And so the ending of the book was just kind of sad because her only options were to let her people die or accept colonization. And perhaps this is the story that R.F. Kuang wanted to write, because her story has been, the entire series has just been like, there are no good choices. People do what they need to in a place where there are no good choices. So the ending does reflect that. There were no good choices. It's like, let genocidal dictator Rin take control of the country and have her people starve to death, or have Neza take over and slow imperialism is enforced on his country, and like, no good choices. So I get that that's what R.F. Kuang wanted to do, but also, like, I feel like nothing was accomplished then, because if Rin did not exist in this world, if she, didn't find the powers, didn't do everything she did in this book, this result would have been the exact same. The Hesperians would have still taken over. Maybe they would have taken over faster with less loss of life. But other than that, like, this would have still happened. And so I feel like the ending negates a lot of everything that Rin was trying to accomplish. And it's just so sad to see, a dark-skinned woman who has been fighting her whole life, like, give up like that. And just accept imperialism, accept being ruled by another country. I don't mind that Rin sacrificed herself. I think it would have been a really cool move if, as we saw in the end, Rin is struggling on how she wants to keep power for herself, how she wants to rule, and I think killing herself or for her people to get food is a good way to kind of show that she truly does care about the people, even after all of her awful acts, and that she's overcome the ability to want power for herself and is making that sacrifice for her people. And I think that was really great. I just hate the fact that the sacrifice had to be so colonization could happen. It's just, I didn't like it. I feel like R.F. Kuang wrote the story that she likes, and I can't blame her for that. I think she wrote a fantastic story. It's just not what I wanted to see in my fantasy novel. I think she was trying to mirror real life, talk about how there are no good choices, talk about history moves in her circle. Those are all themes that she put in the book. So I get why her ending matched those themes, but it just felt like there was no point to this story then. So I hope I got that point across on why I do not like the ending of the Burning God. Other things I didn't like that Venka was killed off. I really liked her as a character, and I thought it was just disappointing that, like, almost all of the sexual assault survivors in this book died. All of the female characters pretty much died on this book too. I mean, to be fair, almost every character died besides Neza, but still, it is kind of disappointing to have Venka, who has grown so far, be thought of as a traitor by Rin and then died. I totally get that her being thought of as a traitor by Rin was showing Rin's kind of descent into badness and her paranoia eating up at her. But I still didn't like it. I wish Venka had survived that, and then Neza could at least have Venka helping run the country. I mean, overall, I don't think it was an awful book. Like, there were things of it I really liked. I've talked about some of them. I really, like, the line that broke me was at the end, when Rin was like looked at Kate, and she's like, I can't remember the exact line, but it's like, I hate you, but I love you, and I'll love you forever, no matter what you do. It's like what he was telling her, and she was like, I feel the same, and then she killed them both, and I was just like, my heart. I love Rin and Kate's platonic soulmate relationship so much. I thought that was brilliant. This book, I give 3 stars. It's not a bad book. I enjoyed reading it. I just wish that R.F. Kuang had wrapped up the book in a different way, but I understand that she wrapped it up in the way she thought was best for her story, so that's valid. That's totally fair. I just wasn't a fan. So yeah, those are my very hot mess of the thoughts of the Burning God. Overall, I'm glad I read the Poppy War series, and I do still recommend it. even though I wasn't a fan of the last. But thank you all so much for watching this video. If you have read the Poppy War series, definitely let me know your thoughts down below. Very curious, because I know there are some people I know who really don't like the book and some people who love it. What are your guys' thoughts? What did you take from the ending about colonization and the choice that Ren had to make? Let me know. But thank you all so much for watching. Bye.